We got music here
That's
at
it.
the Fishing Guide podcast.
Yeah.
It's early, but you know what? We're up and we're going.
That's right.
Excited because one of my longtime friends, been a friend forever and ever, one of our mutual friends, we'll even throw it out there, Brad Branham, if you're listening.
One of the best guides in the United States.
There you go.
No exaggeration. Sam Rayburn.
But the reason why Wes is here, not to talk about Brian, but he's here to talk about, he's actually it's the Fishing Brand Line Manager. Is that close?
Yeah, manage the fishing brands at GSM. That'd be Bill Lewis, Yamamoto,
right,
Buckeye, and Steelshad, the blade bait company. Of course, my roots are with Bill Lewis. That's where I worked for 17 years. But we partnered up with Yamamoto, brand that I was always a big fan of, honestly. I've thrown Cincos my whole life, as most every fisherman has. But, man, they are doing some really cool stuff right now. And the thing that's exciting about working with these folks is they are all about product development. Right.
And so let's go back a little bit in the history. We're looking back in your yearbook, the yearbook of fishing.
Yeah.
You actually started with Bill Lewis. How did that start? How did that actually start?
Yeah, well, as you know, Bill was my grandfather, so grew up around the business. And what I went to college for was marketing, and so that's where I entered in. And, you know, pretty quickly there, I found myself getting into a lot more than marketing. They had gone through some real rough times as a company in the early 2000s, and at one point we were even painting lures in an auto body shop.
Wow!
For a couple of years, and we got through it, and thanks to the good Lord, we were able to grow the company 6 times the size of what it was back then. And then this past year we ended up merging with a few different partners there. So so that's where you are now. So development, before you become part of where you are now, you always brought out new colors, right? Isn't it right? You brought out some. What are some of the most with the rattle
popular,
trap? Color is a big thing.
What was most color like before, just like last year, but what was some of those that you put out there, like Rayburn Red, or a color that you put out that just like everyone had to have?
Yeah, well, the number one selling color by far is chrome and blue, and so just the chrome patterns in general just do good nationally. It's not like a regional color by any means. It's just a very kind of work anywhere type of color. Right. The reds are real big down south on the large grassy reservoirs like Gunnersville and Seminole and Rayburn, lakes like that. But every year we look at our numbers simply and what's selling and what's not, and we have a threshold we set, and if it falls below that threshold, we cut it. And then at the same time, we're always in discussion with our pro staff and with our tackle shops. Right. What's trending? What do you want? What do you need? What ideas do you have? And we always try each year. And sure enough, we'll come up with about 6 or 8 new colors, and typically about 2 of them will survive forever, and about 4 of them will end up getting cut. Right. But you got to throw stuff at the board and see what sticks.
And that takes us over to this. Let's start at the very right, because I think that's phenomenal. Perfect idea for a lure. Probably everyone out there that throws a jerk bait and has an active target or a Garmin, has some sort of live sonar. They're like, man, if I could only see my lure better. Why not build it, right? Wes says.
Yeah, so that's the scope stick, obviously made for scoping. Using that forward-facing sonar technology, jerk baits have become a big part of that pattern. Right. This one here, we went ahead and designed it to make it work a little bit better in that application. Right. We put a flattened side on this jerk bait, so with that flatter side, you have more surface area for that sonar to bounce off the bait when it's shooting at it. Right. Another thing we did, if you can see it in the package here, but the lip design is very unique, and it allows this bait to do sharp angle turns so that the whole side of the bait is facing towards the sonar. So it's getting a better read on it that way too. And it's going to stay within about a 2-foot radius, but it's not only going to go sideways, it's going to dart up, down, all over within that 2-foot radius. So very erratic. So far we've had amazing results. We've caught a lot of fish on it. My associate brand manager, Jack Dice, who fishes a lot more than I do. He's fishing the opens right now.
Uh-huh.
First day out with this, he caught 42 pounds. Best 5 fish.
Wow.
And, it was just the best day he's ever had. So, anyway, it's all on video, too, by the way. He had his GoPro going the whole time.
Going to have to check that out.
Yep.
So you have this. Let's talk about sizes. You also have different models and sizes.
That's right. So we have the 100 millimeter smaller size.
Okay.
Then the 120 millimeter larger size.
Okay.
And this little guy, we make a floater, we make a 4 to 6 foot suspender.
Okay.
The bigger one, we make 4 different ranges in. We make a floater, we make a shallow suspender at 4 to 6 feet, a deep suspender at 7 to 10 feet.
Right.
And then that sinking model that'll get on 10 foot plus.
Right.
So if you have fish in a brush pile at 15, 16 feet, you can fire it out there.
Right.
Reel it down and then count it down with the sinking. Now, you don't really have to count. You're watching these days, right?
That's right.
So, it's pretty effective. And we call it the scope stick.
How many colors does this come in? And does it come in the only color that matters, table rock?
It does come in table rock shad. You got to have that one in a jerk bait. No doubt about it. Aaron Martin taught me that early on. He was real big on that color. But we have 12 right now, but we will be expanding. I mean, we'll easily have 20 plus colors probably by next year.
Right. Yeah. So you brought some other stuff. So on
the Yamamoto side, Yamamoto, kind of like Bill Lewis, where they were known for their rattle trap, and Yamamoto is really known for their Cinco.
Right.
They have really stepped up on developing new products. So this one here, I would say of the three, it's probably the least innovative, to be honest. It's a 3-inch Cinco.
Right.
But what's different about it from a regular Cinco is it has floater formula in it.
Right.
And when you're Ned rigging, that's what you want, right? You want that little bait to stand up so the fish can see it off the bottom. Whereas a Cinco does not have that. It's made to sink, the name Cinco.
Does it have the same characteristics of the plastic and salt in there?
That's the trick, is that it has the same soft action to it, so that a little bit of movement, you're going to get some good wiggle out of that.
Right. So that's the Ned Shaky?
Ned Cinco.
Ned Cinco.
Ned Cinco.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. You got more?
Yep. No.
Bring those crawls
This
out.
Slinko here.
Oh.
I love the name. They took the most iconic toy of all time, the Slinky.
That's right.
And one of the most legendary lures, the Cinco, and just hybridized the name, Slinko.
Right.
But it's really cool in the fact that it's a bulky bait with a ton of action, and it's got floater formula in it as well, so you can stand it up on a shaky head. A Buckeye spot remover is a great jig for that.
Right.
Another one, Nico rig. A lot of guys like to Nico rig this with the nail weight in there, and with that floater, it gets a lot of really great action on it. One thing I've noticed about the Slinko is when I get bit on it, it's more like a jig bite. I think because of the bulkiness of the profile.
Right.
Just in general, it gets bigger bites, like 2 to 3 pounds and up. And I get more bites on this than I do on a jig.
Really?
So I think it's kind of the best of both worlds. Really good on a Carolina rig as well, because it floats up. It's got that floater in it.
Yeah, I got you. The old ball and chain there, huh?
Yeah, not my favorite way to fish, but hey, I know some real sticks down on Toledo Bend that make a lot of money doing it.
That's right. So tell us just a little bit more about the rigging. So you talked about
I'm a Louisiana boy, so I just peg a Texas rig and go to flipping cypress trees.
Okay.
But guys like Brent Ayler, who are on staff, love a Nico rig.
Right.
And so he'll Nico rig it. You'll see other guys that love a shaky head.
Right.
Shaky headed. Like I mentioned, the ball and chain Carolina rig. You can really rig it any way you want. It's a very versatile lure.
Right. How long is that? What's the measurements of that?
I think we're at
inches?
We're at a
is there only
over
one
5
size?
inch. See, it's 5.5 inches.
So you only have one size in
a bit bigger than a 5-inch Cinco.
Right. You only have one size in that.
Currently one size.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And then the other new thing.
This one.
Honestly, there's a lot more new stuff than just this, but I didn't want to sit here all day.
That's all right.
You might eventually talk somebody's ears off, but this Yama Crawl I had to show you.
Right.
Because it's just a great bait. Now, there's a lot of crawfish style baits on the market, of course.
The
difference with this Yama Crawl is, one, the quality of the plastic.
All right.
Now, it's not as soft as a Cinco because for flipping and pitching, we wanted a little bit more durable bait.
Right.
But as far as the action goes, it's got that great Yamamoto action to it. You know how the Cinco does the shimmy on the fall? Different than the Cinco, though, has floater formula. So if you put this crawfish bait on your football jig, you're dragging that football jig on the bottom, and you stop it, these claws are going to flare up like a real crawfish. So it's a very natural bait. I've used it already a good bit. It gets bit. So
Is that come in one size? Or
right now we have it in this 4-inch.
Okay.
There will be other sizes coming.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's go back to the scope stick, because that's the number one deal, I think, that people are just, I can't imagine that you're just not being overwhelmed by that. So you've fished this in some different reservoirs? This part?
So we've tested it a good bit over on Rayburn. And then I fish Kincaid Lake, which is a smaller 2,000-acre lake near central Louisiana, where I live. And Jack, he's up in Virginia.
Wow.
He's out of Lynchburg, so he's fished it a lot around there. And Crispin used to guide on Kentucky Lake, so that's his home water.
That's right.
I hate to put it out there, but Kentucky Lake is coming back, by the way.
Yes, it is.
He kind of wants to keep that a secret, but he said the last three times out, he's had 16 pounds easy. Yeah,
I think he just walked by a little bit ago. He's just mad because Tennessee lost yesterday.
That's right.
So
That's right.
You have to get over that. So, as this comes, like more and more, people will be able to find these in stores, right?
Yeah. Big retailers have them, and a lot of your independent dealers, all the distributors are carrying them, so you should not have trouble finding them. And if you do, just do what everybody else does and get on Google and type it in. You'll find it.
So you've been, your heritage and coming through. You also have tournaments. We haven't touched on. You have some certain tournaments that take across mostly the southeast of the United States, right? Yeah,
we just finished those. We do the Rayburn one in January usually. Trying to capitalize on that big pre-spawn bite where it's the time of year. It started as a rattle trap only tournament.
Right.
And that was a time of year where guys could catch a 30-pound bag on a red rattle trap.
Right.
So from there, we always go to Gunnersville. We usually try to get to Gunnersville the first week of February. Sometimes we have to go later, but it's usually always in February.
All right. But now it's just not rattle trap, right?
Yeah, so since we partnered up with Yamamoto and Buckeye, it's made it a lot more fun. Now guys can use Cincos.
But you have to use that during the tournament. That's what you have to catch your fish on. That's what makes it unique.
Yeah. So it's just those brands. So now we call the tournament Battle of the Brands. Kind of like,
there you go.
When I was growing up in the 90s, you had grunge rock, and there was a lot of Battle of the Bands, right?
Right.
So instead of Battle of the Bands, it's Battle of the Brands. So that's what we're doing.
So tell me, what do you think your most fond memories of fishing one of the rattle traps or one of the Bill Lewis brands that one moment that sticks on and say, hey, I caught this on a fish that, I'm here and it's here and this is part of my heritage.
Yeah. As far as just a memorable fishing trip, I'd have to say it was the last one that I had with Bill Lewis. He unfortunately, as he got into his 80s, he developed some cancer and stuff, and he couldn't really get out on his own. And I was fortunate to be able to take him from central Louisiana, where we lived, all the way down to see one of his lifelong fishing buddies on the Suwannee River in Florida.
Wow.
Beautiful place. Eventually it goes into the Gulf, and you can fish for reds around the mouth of it.
Right.
They'll come up in the river. You can go upriver, fish for bass and all these little creeks. There's manatee, all that kind of. It's really an interesting place. But, that's a trip, with Pops that I just won't ever forget. And, another one would have been with his son, my stepdad, on the Red River. I remember it was the SEC championship day. And we decided instead of watching the game, we were going fishing.
Wow.
And it paid off. It was one of these 82 degrees days that just popped up in the middle of December with a strong south wind, and it stacked a bunch of shad up against a steep bank in the Red River, it was like an old bar pit that connected to the river. It had a real steep bank in it. You could take that Silverado shad color rattle trap and just throw it until you got tired. I mean, they were just piled in there. I mean, nothing huge. I think the biggest one we caught was 4 pounds, but just fish after fish. chunk in a trap, you know.
That's pretty sweet right there. Hey, that takes us over to Tackle Time. Tackle Time sponsored by PICO Lures. PICO Lures has a complete line of hard and soft baits, so you can check their stuff out at picolures.com. Wes, if they wanted to find out more, where they could find out, or any information you got about your lures, where would they go?
Well, I would recommend going to BillLewisFishing.com or to Baits.com for all the Yamamoto stuff.
All right. Sounds good. Appreciate you being on the show.
Oh, thank you.
Takes us to the end. Like I always like to say, make sure you keep your hook sharp and your lures in the water.
Good advice.